You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast. Hey, how are you? As some of you guys know, I am taking a certification course. It's an online course at Stanford, and I am learning so much. And this week I'm learning about a thing called contingency management. And before you hit pause or before you change to another podcast, I promise I'm going to try and keep this very simple and as entertaining as possible. So listen, here's the truth. There's something that you have in common with everybody else that's listening to this, including myself. And that is we love very good people that struggle with addiction. And we are desperate to help them figure out whatever they need to do in order to get sober so that our relationships can survive, right? I know that you are desperately turning or looking for someone or something to help tell you that it's going to be okay. And I am here to tell you, you are going to be okay. I don't know about your loved one. And I know that's really, really painful to listen to me say that. But I don't. The truth of the matter is, and you will always, always find me telling you loving truths, no matter how hard they are to hear, that we don't know if our loved ones will recover or if their recovery will stick or if they'll have lots of relapses. I can't tell you that. I'm not a doctor. I don't know your loved one, but I can relate to you. I can. I have been there before. I fell in love and married a wonderful guy who had it all. I had everything. And I was married to him for 10 years. And we had 3 beautiful kids together. And you guys, if you were to see us like on the streets or in the mall or whatever, you would have thought we had it all together. And we didn't. Because if you took one step inside of our house and spent the night, or you came to dinner, which no one ever did because I couldn't throw host parties because my husband would usually pick up and leave in the middle of them and go to a bar or be so drunk he'd slur his words, and I'd just be sitting there at the table going, oh my God, I hope nobody realizes how bad this is, which they all did. But if you were to come over, you would see really, really quickly. My life was falling apart. I had nothing together and I was miserable and I was madly in love. I was madly in love with the man who just kept hurting me over and over again because the weekend would come around and I thought maybe kids would help him get sober because then we'd have things to do. Like, we could sign up my son for soccer and how much fun would it be to cheer on your son playing soccer on the sidelines, be with all the other parents at 10 o'clock in the morning and with the coolers and the blankets and the chairs and all of it. And the truth of the matter was, it was great to see my son play soccer, but most weekends I was there by myself because my husband was passed out, laying in bed back at our house. And that's the truth, is that unfortunately, no matter how much we try, guys, and no matter how much we try to create and design this life that we think will help them get sober, whatever that is, it really doesn't work unless they want to get sober. So you and I, we could spend our whole lives trying to be perfect, have the perfect house, the perfect cars, and the perfect looks, and the perfect life. We could design it however we want to. But the reality is that it's usually not, our idea of perfection is usually not necessarily what makes us happy. It's very unfulfilling. And number 2, it never gets the results that we typically want. The truth is that life is messy. It always is. Like, no matter who you are or how much money you have or how successful you are, it's always messy. That's why when I was doing Instagram years and years ago, I always was so frustrated by the women that would get on there and like take these beautiful curated pictures of their life. I wanted to go on there and be like, here's a picture of my dirty laundry in the laundry room, because that was the truth. It was like, yeah, you could look at some areas of my life and go, wow, she's really killing it. But no, there were many other areas that I was not killing it. So there's no such thing as this perfect life. Now, what does this have to do with contingency management? Okay, so if you're new here, thank you so much for coming. I am honored that you are listening to this, and I really try hard to provide a really safe, loving, and encouraging community. We are just for people who love someone struggling with addiction. I don't offer any tools on how to get sober. I have no idea how to get sober. I wouldn't even know. I don't talk about things I don't know, and I don't talk about things I have not researched very well. That's like rule number one. But what I am kind of dipping my toe in the pool of addiction, and this is new territory for me, and it's not going to be permanent, but it does have to do with this class that I'm taking. I'm learning a ton about addiction, the science behind it, the genetics behind it, the neurology behind it. We're learning about policies and procedures behind addiction, and we're learning about treatments. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes here, and I'm not sharing everything with you because, frankly, some of it's kind of boring. I don't mean to be rude. I'm so in awe of people that find neurology fascinating. I just don't. But so I'm not going to talk a lot about that. But what I did find fascinating, I am sharing with you because I think you can use it and help apply it to your life. So, and kind of try to make sense of what's going on in your house. And historically, I've always told you, especially in the programs, don't try to waste your time making sense of this disease. It doesn't make sense. Like, you are an incredibly intelligent person. I know that. And you are seeking wisdom and advice. And part of you probably really wants to understand why the heck can they not just get sober? Like, it's a choice, isn't it? And it's really, really frustrating because you see their lives self-destruct. You see everybody that loves them getting constantly hurt. It doesn't make sense. You say, why would someone continue this self-destructive behavior when their life is literally blowing up in front of them? Don't they love me enough to get sober? Don't they love themselves enough to get sober? Like, what is the deal? Why do they love drugs or alcohol or whatever they're addicted to more than they love me? And unfortunately, it has nothing to do with you. I mean, well, that is fortunate. That's not unfortunate. Fortunately, it has nothing to do with you guys. What I have learned and over the years of doing this is literally a combination of them potentially having a genetic predisposition to a type of addiction, or it has to do with their brain, right? And the wiring of their brain and the patterns that they have created. It does not have anything to do with relational issues. That's why you, as a sober person, can sit there and say, okay, I'm experiencing pain. I've experienced trauma. Let's say you get into a giant fight with your parent, right? And you feel rejected and you feel incredibly hurt and you feel empty inside. And you really wanted that validation from your parent to tell you finally, once and for all, that you are good, that you are a good girl, right? And you didn't get it. And so you feel crushed and devastated. You are not using drugs or alcohol to soothe those feelings because you don't have a genetic predisposition or you don't have the neurology craves this, that craves alcohol or drugs or whatever your addiction is more and more. That's why some people that experience trauma don't struggle with addiction, and why some people do. It has nothing to do with, it's not your parents' fault that it might be their fault that they caused you pain, but it's not their fault if you've chosen to use drugs or alcohol as a soothing mechanism. Does that make sense? So that is why, unfortunately, until we break the cycle of addiction at a very young age, like youths, middle schoolers, high schoolers, college, the disease of addiction will continue and continue, unfortunately. But you can take relief and solace in knowing, guys, you could be Mother Teresa. You could be like Angelina. You could look like Angelina Jolie. You could keep a house like Martha Stewart. You could bake like, who's a good baker, guys? Barefoot Contessa. You could, what else? You could be as wealthy as Oprah Winfrey. I'm going to use all women here intentionally. You could have all your stuff together, and the person that you love today would still be struggling with addiction, because it has nothing to do with what you're lacking in. It has nothing to do with what you haven't provided, or what you're nagging, or you're pestering, or your obsessiveness, or whatever else that addiction tries to convince you is the reason why they just can't get sober, right? Because that's what addiction does. It tells you over and over again, every time they mess up, that somehow, some way, you are ultimately partly responsible for this decision. And you, as a wise woman, need to reject that idea and go, nope, that's not it. That's not me. I don't have anything to do with this. Whether I choose to leave or whether I choose to stay, you're still going to have to take 100% ownership of your disease. Now, contingency management is interesting. This is what I'm learning, okay? So there's this guy. He's incredibly smart, way smarter than I am. His name is Stephen Higgins. You can find his book on Amazon. It's really deep. Let's just put it that way. He's incredibly smart. And so it's one of his books is called Behavioral Pharmacology, which is another thing I'm learning about. You guys say that 5 times fast. Pharmacology. I mean, what are we even talking about there? I do know what that means. I'm very impressed with myself. But anyways, so here we go. Contingency management is basically something that Stephen Higgins, this incredibly smart man, came up with. And it was actually demonstrated on people that were struggling with cocaine addiction and were looking for treatment specifically for their cocaine addiction. So he said, listen, guys, he runs this clinic, and he says, if you come into my clinic and you take your drug test and it comes back negative, I'm going to give you $2. And if you come back 2 days later and you take the drug test and it comes back negative again, I'm going to give you $4. And then if you wait another 2 days and it still comes back negative, I am going to give you $8. And a lot of people were like, Steven, this is not going to work. You're crazy. $2? Are you kidding me? Like, what? They're not going to get sober for $2 because, hello, if they were to get sober for $2, why wouldn't they get sober for their marriage? Or they're like, why wouldn't they get sober because they're going to lose their job? What is the deal with $2? Some monetary minuscule value. Well, guess what, guys? Stephen, because he is so smart, was actually right. They did end up getting, there was significant changes in their behavior. And the reason why they are saying this worked, that Stephen's theory worked, was because the consequences for whether they were choosing to get sober or they were choosing to partake in their drug of choice, in this instance cocaine, was because the rewards or consequences were specific and certain. They were specific, they were certain, and they were swift. So, for example, let's say you love someone and they have a drinking problem. And you're like, why can they not just get sober? I'm going to threaten to leave. So you say, listen, I love you to pieces, but if you don't get sober, I'm packing my bags and I'm out of here. And you think, well, I just threatened them. I'm going to leave them. That's a big enough consequence to get them sober, right? Well, according to this contingency management theory, they say, actually, it's not. And the reason why it's not is because it's theoretical and it's in the future. It's a might happen. It's not immediate and it's not certain. Do you see what I'm saying? So this makes big sense. So when you threaten, and trust me, I am not judging you. I threatened a gazillion, trillion, magillion times my loved one trying to get him sober. I mean, I would go so far. This is how smart I was. It would be 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. He'd be passed out. I'd be through with it. I said, okay, I'm leaving. I left in my pajamas. I grabbed my car keys, left in my pajamas. No bag, no money, nowhere to go. Like, what am I doing? But I'm so mad that I get in my car. I get my keys, I get my car. I'm wearing my pajamas, which, by the way, I have never spent a ton of money on pajamas before. And so these are old ratty pajamas that have stains all over them. And I am wearing... Sorry, I just had to press pause there for a second because it's summertime and all of my kids are home. And even if I lock the door, somehow they managed to finagle it open. Heaven help me. I love teachers. I love school. Okay, so anyways, I get in my car in my ratty pajamas. I have nowhere to go. And of course, with my evolved wise self, I am looking at my phone every 5 seconds, checking to see if he called to beg me to come home. Because I just threatened to leave. Like, he should be devastated. He should be so worried. Like, I'm a woman in her pajamas. And all I'm doing, you guys, is driving around the block. Like, I'm just driving around the block. And by like the 4th time driving around the block, I'm like looking through the windows, slowing down, trying to figure out, like, is he so worried? Is he so concerned? No, he wasn't worried. He wasn't concerned. He was sitting on the couch with his beer, probably enjoying his alone time and the fact that I wasn't nagging him. So then all the time I would come back with my head hung and just like totally embarrassed that my plan did not work or have any effect whatsoever. But Stephen would have, if I was friends with Stephen Higgins, he would probably have said to me, Michelle, bless your sweetheart, but you are not serious about leaving. Therefore, the consequence is not really certain. He can see you're certainly not leaving. You don't have your bags packed. You have no plan on where to go, and you have no money. So it's this threat that you're trying to make is not certain. Therefore, it really is ineffective. And I wish I had known Stephen, or I had known about contingency management back then, because I'd like to think that I probably wouldn't have made all those empty threats for those years and years and years, but who knows? I probably would have done it anyways. So that's why even the smallest, most specific reward, positive reward, is sometimes proven to work, right? Now, I've broken this down because I don't just like to educate you. I'd like to make it practical so that you can actually use this in your own home and in your own life and apply it. And here's the deal, you guys. It might work. It might not. I'm not offering any guarantees at all. This podcast is just about giving you the information and reminding you that it's going to be okay. because I'm your friend and I'm here for you. I've got you and I know what this feels like. So it's giving you all the tools that I wish I had back then. And then if you want to go deeper, obviously there's the programs that we have. And those I do guarantee because those are really, really well researched. Okay, so how do we apply contingency management to our lives? All right, so think about it this way. Think about if you were to sit down at your favorite spot in your house with a pad of paper and a pen, you would get it out and you would write 2 columns. You would write one column that's labeled rewards, and you would write a separate column that's called consequences. Okay, and these are practical things that you can do that offer rewards and consequences for your loved one's behavior. Now, some of you might be sitting here going, Michelle, I am not a mother. I am not a teacher. Why am I doing this? For those of you saying that, I think you're exactly 1,000% right. I mean, you might be a mother and a teacher, but you are not your loved one's mother or teacher. You are their partner, and that's a very different role. But this exercise is for you. It's actually to help you because, like I said before, I'm not offering any help for the addict, the one struggling with addiction. I don't do that. My entire purpose and intention is to help you. I'm your friend. I'm your support. I've got your back. So when you are going to write this column, these 2 columns, and you're going to talk about rewards and consequences, when your loved one starts to abuse whatever they are addicted to, you are going to go to this list and you're going to exercise one of these things. You're going to exercise your consequences. If your loved one is actually doing something terrific and avoiding their drug of choice or their addiction of choice, you're going to go to the rewards column. Now, again, you could be sitting there going, wait, Michelle, that's literally like, I could see you saying, Michelle, like criticizing that idea and thinking that that's putting you in the role of a teacher or a mother. And I'm going to tell you it's not. And the reason why it's not is because this exercise is to help you get clear about your behaviors. It's to give you the power to choose your reactions to their sobriety or their addiction. I don't believe in that saying at all that we are powerless over this disease. I believe we absolutely hold the power over this disease. And this is one of the ways to do that, is to sit there and go, okay, if your loved one, let's say hypothetically, it's Saturday night, and your loved one has a history of pouring a big old glass of rum and Coke and sitting in front of the television or whatever they do on their Saturday nights, right? You know, a great way to predict the future is to think about the past. What have they done in the past with their addictions? Okay, then that's a great way to look at what are they going to do in the future. So historically, what are their behaviors on weekends? That's a great way to predict what they're going to do next weekend and the weekend after that. So let's say they pour themselves a big old glass of ice, rum, and Coke, and they sit down in front of the television. All right, you on Thursday night, so they are prepping for Saturday night, and you're looking at your list that you've already curated, and you're saying, okay, if my loved one pours that glass of rum and Coke that's always full because they fill it up multiple times throughout the evening, this is the one of the consequences that I'm going to do. And if they don't choose to do, if they choose a new behavior, like let's say they decide to go to the movies with you. Is anyone going to the movies these days? I don't know. I love the movies. I miss the movies so much. Maybe the movies is a bad example. Out to dinner with you, and they don't drink, they choose to have a Diet Coke. Let's say that happens. Then you can choose, then okay, and this is the reward that I'm going to do. All right? This is not babying them. This is not sitting there managing their addiction. It's managing your reaction to their addiction. It's actually showing up in the relationship as a very rational, reasonable partner. And it's saying, I've got a roadmap here. I've thought this through. I'm not going to wait for addiction to take me off guard and surprise me all the time. I've actually taken accountability and responsibility for my life. I've thought through what I've gone through in the past so that I can navigate my way through the future. Now, another thing you might be thinking after doing this for a while is, this is getting lame. Like, this is lame. I'm so tired of trying to think of or rewards or consequences. I just want a relationship where I can just be me. Great. You know what? That's empowering too, because now you know you need to leave. But if you want to stay, if your goal is to remain in this relationship because you love them, not because you're scared to leave, not because you're scared of being on your own, but if you really want to stay because the truth is that you love them and you don't want to leave, which is perfectly acceptable, you are never going to get any judgment from me, then you have to learn how to manage their addiction, because there is a chance, a very big chance, that the one you love will not get sober. And I am not saying that to be a jerk. I'm saying that because I know the statistics, okay? And so I'm going to try and help you reach a place where you feel empowered, because you are not weak. And you are not weak for staying either, okay? You are not weak for choosing to remain in this relationship. It's okay. Every couple has their issues. And your loved one might be the very small percentage that gets sober for an extended period of time, 10 years or more. You might be married to that person. That might be you. And so you get to decide whatever you want, if you should leave or stay. But until you do, I've got to equip you so that you are not the powerless, weak. I don't mean you're weak, but like feeling. I don't want you to feel weak in this. I want you to feel like you have options. And this reward and consequence is a great way. This contingency management theory is a great way to navigate as someone who loves someone struggling with addiction. So here's the list, all right? So you're sitting down with me. I'm sitting across the couch from you. We're sitting at your favorite spot in your house. We take out a pad and paper and we brainstorm these two columns, all right? Here's some ideas. You don't have to use them again. They write down only what you want to write down. I'm just offering some suggestions. Got it? So some of the consequences, if you see them with that rum and Coke in front of the TV and their lazy boy, I don't know why I added the lazy boy, it just came to mind, which, by the way, have you ever sat on a lazy boy? So comfortable. So comfortable. Anyways, okay, here we go. Number one idea for the consequences column is that you leave the room. All right, you walk away, you disengage, you don't talk to them, you cut off communication and you cut. So if they're in their lazy boy drinking rum and Coke, you're not sitting on the couch reading a newspaper. Newspaper. Who reads news? What is going on with movies, newspapers? Where am I today? You guys, whatever. Magazine. Does anyone read those anymore? Phone. You're not looking at your phone on the couch. You're actually saying, okay, if they are choosing to partake in their addiction, I am choosing to vacate. I am choosing to exercise my right to leave the premises. And you just aren't in, it doesn't need to be you leave the house unless you want to. It can be you leave the room, but you disengage. It can mean if they call you and they've been drinking, you hang up the phone. You say something very polite like, I love you and I want to hear what you have to say, but I can clearly see that you've been drinking or you've been using or you're not sober right now. And as soon as you are, I will be ready to hear you. But until then, I'm sorry. I'm just not going to partake in any communication with you until then. And then you hang up. You don't wait for them to argue, which they will, or defend, or call you a liar, or tell you that you're crazy, or tell you they're sober. You don't listen to any of that. You literally just disengaged, okay? And you don't go into the room, and I'm laughing because I did this so many times. You don't sit there when they pour their rum and Coke and ice and say, well, that's it. I'm leaving the room. You don't grab a mega speaker and say, I am leaving the room because you are drinking. You don't make it a big dramatic announcement. You do it, and then you tell them, if you want to, after the next day when they're sober, and say, hey, you know what? Last night when you were drinking, did you notice I wasn't on the couch hanging out with you? Yeah, I didn't feel comfortable. I'm not going to hang out with you anymore. I've made a personal decision. It's a boundary that I'm making. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. It brings up really yucky feelings inside of me watching you get drunk. So I'm not going to be in your presence anymore when you do that. And I hope you can respect that. And it doesn't matter what they say. Does not matter. La, 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 la. Does not matter. You just created an awesome boundary and you're going to stick to that and follow through with it, right? But you're not going to make a big scene because now that you're just asking for a fight. And that's not, you don't want to engage with them in a negative way. So that's option number one. Leave the room, disengage, hang up the phone, whatever. Another consequence, if you see them engaging in their addiction, is if you have someplace to go and they have gotten high or they are drunk or whatever, you go without them. I hear this so much, guys, and I used to just do this too. I would put off plans because he was up to his shenanigans. And I would recreate the day, I would rearrange the day around his addiction. And that behavior has got to stop. So you're going to create your day based on what you want to do and based on what you need to do. And it can involve him or her, but it should not be necessary. You don't need them to join you. You're going to go and do your thing, stay in your lane, live your life. And if they want to join you because they're sober, great. But if they don't, if they're not sober, you're not changing your plans around their addiction, and you certainly are not inviting them or allowing them to come with you, right? You are only going to be spending time with sober people from this point on. So that's another one, is that if they start to use their addiction, you continue with your plans. You don't rearrange your day. Okay, here's another big controversial one that I'm going to suggest that some of you guys talk a lot about in the secret Facebook group. And that is sex. All right. Here's what I'm going to say about sex. You can use it as a consequence if they have been up to no good and starting their shenanigans with their drinking or drug use. Now, is it healthy for you to hold it over their head because tease them all day and then say, oh, sorry, shop is closed because you're drinking? That's manipulative behavior, right? We don't want to do that. That's not living to our best potential. That's not being our best selves. And we always want to remain dignified, polite women, right? That's no matter what they're behaving like, we are dignified, we are polite, we have manners, we have self-respect, and we are going to behave accordingly. But if you feel unsafe and they want to sleep with you, you absolutely, and they've been drinking or using their drugs or whatever, or even if they haven't, to be honest with you, then do not have sex with them. You have autonomy over your own body, just like they have autonomy over theirs. They are choosing to hold that bottle up to their lips or snort that line, or ingest those pills, or watch with their own eyeballs the pornography, or whatever they're behaving in, right? Whatever act they're behaving in. That's their autonomy. They get to choose if they want to do that. It's their choice. And we can't control that. Just as the same as we have the right to choose whether we want to engage with them. We don't owe them sex. We don't. And if they, frankly, are not creating a safe, loving, nurturing environment, then sex absolutely should not be part of the equation. Sex is an intimate act that is reserved for a loving and safe environment. So if your loved one is not choosing to get sober, please do not feel that it is necessary to sleep with them in order to get them to be quiet. That is sexual abuse. If you are giving in sexually to them when you don't want to, because they are guilting you, or they're using lines saying, well, we're married, or we're in a relationship, I'll go somewhere else if you don't give it to me. They're threatening you, or they're guilt tripping you. That is sexual abuse. And I strongly encourage you to make the honorable, courageous choice of not giving away your body and your dignity and your pride, but holding true to yourself and saying, you know what? I'm not going to fall for this. I'm stronger than this. I am not in the mood. I do not feel comfortable. I am not attracted to this person whatsoever right now in this moment. Therefore, I am going to withhold. And that makes me a strong and courageous woman who is putting herself first, is choosing her body first. I will not be manipulated or controlled by this other person. So you can use, I don't want to say sex as a consequence, but you can use withholding and honoring your body as in times when they are, engaging in whatever kind of addiction they are. And like I said earlier, even if they aren't, you always have that choice. Another consequence we can talk about that you might want to add to your list is children. Now, for those of you that are experiencing separation or divorce and you love someone struggling with addiction, it is absolutely okay that you protect your babies from this addiction as much as you can. And I don't care how old your babies are. I have a 20-year-old, and I protect my baby from this addiction still. I mean, he's my baby. And I do that by a variety of ways, but we won't go into that. That's another podcast. But you are the parent. You are the strong, sober one. And it is you against this disease when it comes to protecting your kids. You are taking on this disease, and you are a warrior, and you are a fighter, and you are a defender, and you are an advocate. And so it is your job. You make it if you think that they are actively drinking and using drugs in the presence of your children. It is your responsibility to make it as difficult as possible for them to see their children if there is evidence to show that they are using a substance, or I'm sorry, I got tripped up because I realized I have to be very careful with my words here. If your children are in danger, if your children are at risk, in other words, if your loved one has a drinking problem and they have been drinking and driving with your kids in the car, your job is to minimize visitation until they are sober. And they have proven they are sober. And the way you do that is through the court system, and you get tests that you can use. You get breathalyzers that they can take prior to the visitation. If your loved one struggles with drug addiction, let's say they're addicted to cocaine and they keep cocaine in the house, you could lose your kids. You guys, if the police discover cocaine in the house, you could lose custody of your own children. So it is your job to advocate and protect your children from visitation until your loved one gets sober. You are, unfortunately, the middleman between addiction, your children, and your loved one. It's not fair. I get it. But it is the position that you are in. And it was the position you put yourself in when having kids with someone struggling with addiction. I did it. I did 3 times. 3 times. I don't regret that decision. I adore my children, but I recognize the role that I have for the rest of my life. It doesn't end just because I got divorced. It doesn't end just because I walked away. My kids still have a 60% chance, hereditary chance of becoming addicts themselves. So the fight of addiction still is not over. I'm battling this addiction until the day I die because I can't rest. I can't sit there and think, oh, well, 60% chance. I have to continue talking about addiction. I still have to continue to teach them. Just this morning, I made a list of all of the drugs the pharmaceutical drugs that I would rather them not use because they have addicted tendencies. And, there are other alternatives to pain relief that are not these substances. Why am I saying that? I wouldn't be saying that if I didn't have a kid that had a past, a history that addiction is in their family. But these are the types of things as mothers we need to think about. Okay, so those are just some things that you can put on your list of consequences, right? And there's probably 7 or 8 more that you can think of, and I want you to think of your own. Obviously, I don't know your personal situation, so just take some time, 15 minutes, to brainstorm some consequences that you could do that will protect you. And these consequences are basically another way of saying a boundary. Now, in the other list that we're going to talk about, which is rewards for their abstinence. So this is things that you're going to do immediately, swiftly, or whatever, that show, hey, I'm here for you. I'm supporting you. I'm your biggest fan. I want you to get sober. I love you. I want to see you through this. And even if you say, I don't know if I can stick around for another 2 or 3 or 5 years, I don't know where I see myself if this continues, but for now I'm staying, and so I want to be a supporter of you, that's fine too. But in this column, you're putting the rewards. Now, these are only rewards that you enjoy doing. I don't want you to put anything in there that you don't like. So let's say I put in the rewards column going fishing. All right. So if they're big fishermen or women, then, and you enjoy fishing too, then why don't you make a date to go fishing? You could say, hey, let's grab the rods. Do you say that? I'm not a fisherman. I don't know what I'm talking about. Hey, let's grab the rods and go fishing for the day. I don't know. That doesn't sound like it's a thing. But you get the point. All right. So that could be something. Or let's say, and I'm being very, very sexist here because my next example is going to a game, which I'm realizing, good Lord, Michelle. But like, I enjoy going to games. So this is something I would do. As long as they have served hot dogs there, I'll go to any game. Just give me a hot dog. Maybe 2. But if you want to go to a basketball game or a baseball game or whatever, let's say you can go get cheap tickets. I love the cheap tickets in the nosebleed sections and a hot dog. Oh my gosh, I'm a happy camper. Maybe you can create an intimate moment for them as a reward. So you light some candles, or you play a song and have a dance party in the living room, which turns into a slow dance party, which turns out to a makeout session. Maybe you go driving in a convertible with the top down and go parking for a little while. Or maybe you go to your favorite restaurant. Or maybe you just have a nice dinner and order, go through KFC drive-thru and light a candle at home. I don't know. But you create an intimate moment. And then, or maybe a reward would be to cook their favorite meal. I love cooking. I love food, as you guys know. I bring that up almost every podcast. And there's nothing I love better than setting down a meal that took me forever to cook and having people appreciate it. So oftentimes I'll ask my kids or my husband when I'm planning out the menu for the week, what's a meal that you guys would like to eat? And so I have on rotation. I don't always cook it because sometimes it's like a 4-hour meal. And it's not 4 hours. It shouldn't be 4 hours to cook, but I'm very slow. So it does take me a while. But yeah, maybe you cook them like a great meal or whatever. Whatever they enjoy and whatever you enjoy with them, could be a great reward. Okay? And so what are you going to do this next week? I'll wrap it up because I know we're making these podcasts long and I apologize. I'm going to try and make them shorter in the future. So what do we do in the next week? Your assignment is you're going to make a rewards list and a consequences list. You're going to think about, okay, next time they drink, this is or whatever they do for their addiction, this is what a consequence I'm going to do. And next time they choose abstinence, this is a reward I'm going to do. You're going to plan ahead, right? You're going to think ahead. And if you want a kind of like we've already created a beautiful handout for you. It's totally free, no strings attached, totally free. With the reward and the consequences, the columns, it's just a little printout that you can use. Then go ahead and get that. You can go to loveoveraddiction.com. And when you sign up for our emails, which will have the emails, actually will give you a link to the transcripts of all these podcasts so you can read them. That's free too if you want. Highlight them or whatever. And then we also give you a free handout for every podcast that will help you. And you can create a little mini workbook if you want to. If that's not safe for you because you're worried about your loved one finding it, that's okay too. And then if you want to dive deeper, if you want to go deep, go big or go home, you can go to the website and grab one of our programs that are really helpful. And we have the entire program on workbooks too, so you can read, and they're beautiful. They have fill in the blanks and beautiful pictures. So that is it. That's my help for you today. I love you guys, and it's going to be okay. Let's end where we started, which is just a hopeful reminder to tell you, I know it's a lot. Trust me, I get that this is a lot. It's a lot. I am not belittling anything of what you are going through right now. It is not simple. It is not easy. And it's incredibly painful and challenging. But you can do this, and it will be okay. It will. Just keep trying. I promise you can do it. I'm right behind you, cheering you on every step of the way. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with my personal thoughts and beliefs. We are bonded together by the fact that we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.